It has really quite profound political implications. The assumption has to be, it may well turn out not to be true, but the assumption has to be that the Ukrainian rebels, who have in the last couple of days shot down a number of Ukrainian military aircraft, may well have shot down this airliner, presumably by mistake, but that will do immense damage to their political standing and to the political standing of the Russians, who have been their key supporters. That the instinct on the Russian and the rebel side will be to deny it. We will get a lot of conflicting reports and arguments. The Russians will certainly argue that they were pressing for a ceasefire and that this tragedy is the result of there not having been a ceasefire. But from the American and from the Western side, there will be a strengthening of the statement that the Russians have behaved appallingly, that they are the people who have provided the rebels with the sort of sophisticated weaponry which enables this sort of tragedy to happen, and that therefore that sanctions and world condemnation of the rebellion and the Russians should be strengthened.
So the scale of potential diplomatic damage here is quite high. Oh,
it's huge. It's huge. And if you think back, that there was a similar incident back in the early 80s when the Russians shot down a Korean civilian airliner, and it did immense damage. This was sort of very late Cold War, but it did immense damage to the standing of the then Soviet Union, not only with the West, we were in the Cold War anyway, but in a lot of non-aligned nations. And that's probably where the most damage will be done from the Russian point of view, because the Chinese, the Brazilians, the Indians have taken a relatively neutral view on this conflict so far. It becomes much harder for them to take a neutral view if indeed it turns out that the rebels have shot down a civilian airliner.
As somebody who has served in Moscow in the past, can you give us a sense of what might be happening there now and who might be dealing with this and who might be prepared to answer questions on this?
In the Russian administration, well, it's gone straight to the top. I mean, obviously, this has such potentially grave ramifications that it will go on straight to Mr. Putin and to his most immediate advisors. They will be working very hard to discover what the truth is, just as other governments are doing. But they have a particular agenda which they will want to defend, which is the rightness of the rebellion that's going on in Ukraine, their rightness in pressing for a ceasefire in that rebellion. And they will therefore be very inclined to resist the conclusion that it was the rebels, or much more seriously, that the missile might have come from the Russian side of the border itself.